but that's the way citizen activism is. So my areas of interest obviously are primarily transit, but transit isn't just about the streetcars and buses and subways running back and forth. It's about city planning, it's about how people use transit, it's about how traffic works, and right now, of course, one of the big debates downtown is the whole question about how road space is divvied up, how much gets used for cars, how much for transit, how much for pedestrians, how much for cyclists, and there ain't enough room to go around, as of course you know out here on Lakeshore, where parts of the street are being reconfigured with bike lanes, and eventually there'll be a transit reserved lane at least as far as Park Lawn, but that, I'm sure there's going to be lots of tension about, okay, who gets elbowed out of the way to make room for stuff that's added, and that has been a big issue.
In 1793 was when Lord Simcoe came and established the first British white settlement on the shores of Lake Ontario, what we now call Toronto, down near Fort York at the foot of Bathurst Street. And when he came, he was a real... he wasn't a fan of the poor law at all. There was a lot of the British settlers that really had no truck or trade with the poor law. And what that resulted in is a lot of the services got built up at the municipal level. He was trying to build a utopia, and he said, well, we don't need any poor laws. That's just gonna attract poverty, in his view, and also the view of Lady Simcoe. So everything developed at the local level here in Toronto, and in 1893 we got our first worker they called the relieving officer. So why is this relevant? It's relevant because until next year, 2018, the municipal governments in Ontario all had a financial role in social assistance. You can't go anywhere else in the country. And you can't go anywhere in the United States and almost nowhere in the Western world where the municipalities have a structural role in funding social services, like OW. And up until Dalton McGuinty came in, you even had them in a role in funding ODSP. So that really put a damper on municipal governments, and a government like Toronto to actually recommend
traffic, libraries, community centers, health centers, all those things are run by city. There's city services, affordable housing. There's a whole bunch of service areas that impact us on the day-to-day, and we want to have a city where everybody can access these services in an equitable kind of way. So we're just going to go to the third slide. There's two types of budgets. The first type of budget is called rate supported, and that's when you pay for things like, there's three items in there. One is waste collection. So if you're a homeowner and they come and they collect your garbage and recycling, you pay for that, and that's fully rate supported. There is water services and parking, green P. So if you drive and you park in one of those circle Ps, those green circle Ps, those are the rate supported budgets. That budget process, when it gets announced, we just finished it, it's unexciting. Nobody's really watching that one too much. It kind of does its own thing and moves forward. And the main event that we watch out for is, I think we're a bit too far ahead. Yeah, there, is the tax supported budget. So this is the one that is paid for by different types of taxes and revenue tools. And so there's two categories in here. The first is capital budget. I apologize if you can't see that. That is really small printing. I am so sorry about that. But I will tell you what's in it, and if anybody needs copies or an email of this, I will give you whatever you need. So I'll go through it, and if you have questions, just stop me and ask. But the first, under the tax supported there's a capital budget, and a yearly capital and a 10-year capital plan, and that pays for things like the gardener, building the gardener, buying new streetcars, fixing up roads, building shelters and community centers, those kinds, and community service for women who are experiencing violence. We serve about 900 women a year and their dependents, and most of them live in very deep poverty. And the city was not talking about gendered poverty or the fact that if you're a woman in any one of these vulnerable categories, you're experiencing more depth of poverty. So we thought, you know, we can have a city strategy that doesn't address women's issues, but we know, and there's a lot of research that shows if you address women's issues, you actually bring everybody along. Everybody benefits, and the return to the communities is so much more greater. So that was our entry point into this discussion.
Geordie might talk more about this.
We've never hit our targets. We are so far off the mark on those targets that we have a major housing crisis, and that stuff is not in the budget. How am I for time? Speed it up a little? Okay. I'll wrap it up in a sec. So this is some of the poverty reduction items that have money attached to them that's not, again, not in the budget. Recreation programs, student nutrition, as I said, the Fair Pass, which we'll hear about, I'm sure, and a childcare expansion. This one just kind of blows my mind because the province is paying most of this money. I think it's $48 million to do the childcare expansion. The city only has to pay $2.1 million, and it's not in the budget. So this budget is a little bit mind-blowing. What it means, some of the impacts is that the wait for social housing, we're hitting up to 100,000 families on the social housing wait list. That's families. So like in a family of 2, 3, 4, that's a lot of people who are on the wait list for social housing. That's like a 10-year wait. Childcare subsidies is also growing. I think there's over 18,000 people, children on the subsidized childcare wait list, and it's just trending upwards. We're not actually looking at reducing those wait lists at the way we're investing. We're not investing into this poverty reduction strategy. If we were, we would be reducing some of those wait lists. There is an equity strategy that's at the city, so they're supposed to be looking at their budgets from a gender equity lens, and it's called an intersectional gender equity lens. It really just means, you know, how are we servicing women? How are we serving people from racialized communities? Are they able to access our services? If not, why not? What can we do to make access better? And it's supposed to be a whole toolkit that the city is supposed to be looking at and using when they make their budgets. And guess what? It's not really happening either. They have a bit of a process. To be fair, there's a bit of a process happening. And on Tuesday, a report will come out to say where they're at on that. But we're really pushing the city to do more work on that. And that's all this slide says.
Can the city move money from the capital budget to operating budget to pay for some of these, what I consider way more important initiatives?
Part of the issue with private survey is that not all of the capital is paid for by the city. So the part that's provincial money and federal money can't be reallocated. As far as city capital goes, the city can't borrow money to pay for current operating costs, but if it borrows less money to build the Scarborough subway, that frees up debt payments that we would otherwise make to spend on operating. The problem is there is such a backlog of capital projects, just as there is of operating projects, that the minute you free up, if you free up the city's share of the Scarborough subway, there's a list of projects as long as your arm, TCHC being a perfect example, of other places to spend the borrowed money the city has. So really you're talking about moving money around between capital projects and moving money around in operating. But going back and forth from one to the other is a lot trickier.
Develop meaningful and impactful actions that address these issues. So poverty is not a topic for only the ones that are suffering. When we talk about poverty, everybody has to be on board to take actions. And this is where we have to assume our responsibility as citizens. I will not pretend that nothing happened when I see it every day. The City of Toronto has created committees and public consultation so that citizens can participate in economic development and use more effective strategies to ensure growth and prosperity and make sure the resources are widely shared among the city to have equity so that all can live in a dignity. Some of the, as a league, some of our main advocacy points is connecting with politics. focus in housing. Housing is going to be our main priority for 2018. In terms of budget, some of the key initiatives for 2018 will be the Transit Fare Equity Program, extended Sunday hours at the Toronto Public Library, and more schools with the student nutrition program, youth programs in libraries and recreation centers, childcare spaces and fee subsidies, and the reform of the Toronto housing. For me, what I can tell you is that we know all these issues, so we need to be moved. We need to get out. We need to engage with community centers, with these all services that provide the city, and use our voice. Use your voice and be together, invite other people to join the movement, because I think this is the only way that things can get fast. Sometimes here that right now I'm working with the league, I can find that the city takes too much time to make improvements. But if we are all together, probably it's going to be more faster. So the actions will get fast.
Although what I'd really like to say is that social assistance should probably be paid out in something called social Bitcoin, given the amount of rises we see in virtual currencies. I'd just make the comment that for someone like me personally, who has, amongst various other people who bought homes in the 1970s in Toronto in the 416, who have reaped an utterly unearned, untaxed windfall on our own homes, that is where we should see the stigma, as opposed to seeing the stigma of someone actually receiving social assistance and social supports in our city. Because it's them that are paying for my unearned, untaxed windfall. So the answer is higher property taxes. Let's just do it and work out a clever scheme for those of people who cannot afford them to be able to stay in their own homes. But for all the rest of us, let's just increase them and stop the nonsense.
I would say if there's one message, and this applies to transit, but it also applies to many other city programs. When you see a politician says, I support something, I support fruit juice, good photo op. Ask them how they're going to pay for it, and whether it really is going to be in the budget or is going to be one of those things that they promise and never quite deliver on. That really is central to every issue in the city. It's easy to promise to do something. Actually paying for it is another matter.
I'll echo that. We need John Tory to keep his promises to pay for 2-hour fare transfers in 2018 and for the low-income transit pass, the fare pass. We need more funding for the TTC for better service and lower fares.
Often when I come to events like this, there's usually a few people that have a sense of despair or feeling like we can't win it. But I don't have that feeling. I think all the pieces are there. They just need to be organized. We've had victories yesterday. We've had victories this year. We can do this. A lot of people in the past, women, Indigenous people, people of color, have faced a lot greater challenges than we are facing today. They got it done, so can we.
Among all ages, growing inequality, geographic inequality, not enough awareness of the importance of doing your taxes because of the benefits. If you do your taxes, thank you. The next question was, what message do you want to send to your counselor about the issue? Advocate, allocate money to reduce poverty, allocate funds towards achieving the poverty initiatives that are set by the city, so more action. Increase money towards social services. If you do this, we'll see a decrease in violence and crime. Use vacant buildings as shelters and housing for people. More lunch in schools, more community gardens. more supports for mental health and addiction. Our next question is, what can you commit to? Contacting our counselor, deputations, raise awareness of the income and poverty in your community, so make other people aware, such as like the campaigns about $15 in fairness, join boards and committees so that you have a voice, and advocate for basic income. And one more question. What can we do together to make this happen? More civic engagement like this. Connect with your community. More communication about the importance of being socially connected to people and building bridges amongst all of us. Connect with people that align with your values and interests. What duplication or gaps exist in our communities, and share information and advocate about poverty and the impact it's having on seniors.
More community buses. People are really concerned about fare integration and a two-tiered service. 2-hour fare transfers are needed. We need better Wheel-Trans service. Fares are far too high, especially for students, and people are really concerned about wait times. So our messages to our counselors, we wanted more transparency, more disclosure on how they're making decisions and the data they have on ridership. There's some special messages to Mark Grimes. People want less crowding, we need affordable transit, passes are too expensive, and we really need a break for people on OW and ODSP, and people also brought up respect for riders. Finally, how can we get involved and what can we commit to? People want to track and tell everybody about their councillors' voting records on transit, get involved in the upcoming elections, and Metrolinx as well is having a town hall for the first time on December 12th, this Tuesday, and people want to get involved in that and ask some tough questions.
But before we go, we have to strategize, plan, which we will have a meeting coming up Thursday at LAMP. Thank you, Jasmine, for providing the space. At 6 o'clock, so that's Thursday, December 14th, at LAMP. Please sign up if you want to sign up for deputation or even other information, not only to depute, but any other questions and concern you would like to be raised at City Hall. This is the time to do it. I know we rushed out of a little bit of time, but this is the time. This is a start. It is election season. We have 2 elections coming up, June 7th and October. June is the MPP. Where are the candidates in this writing? So if you don't see it, what does that mean? You're out. They don't care. And if they don't care, what do you have to do? That's correct. We need new candidates. Simple as that. What do you have to understand? This is a business. You guys are the employer. They work for you. Your voice matters. But it's how you do it. Right? They think that, okay, few people are meeting up present. It's not going to make a difference. Show them that today is a start. Today, here at LAMP Community Health Center, this is a start, and we will make a change. You're not here, you don't care about us, guess what? You will when we go to City Hall, and we remove you from the office. Okay? Let's get civically involved. Let's get engaged. Your voice, your children, seniors, all of us matter. It's hard, it's not easy. We're in poverty. We're really paying rent. You think everybody can come? When you have 2 jobs, this room would have been filled. Thousands that want to take part of it. So you are the leader for your community. Go out and recruit more. Do a little group meetings. It started by a few people. You can make a difference. Trust me. But today, as an action of call, let's start it. Let's get strategized, organized. Go and change it. You don't want to come here today? Guess what? We'll bring somebody else who will. Next October. Thank you.